show. But right now, we want to turn to our top story for you, and that is what is next for Raul Valle, the 20-year-old waking up somewhat of a free man this morning.
Will the defendant, Raul Valle, please rise and face the jury? Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
After more than 13 hours of deliberations, Valle in the Preppy Party murder trial was found not guilty of the crime of murder. The victim, Jimmy McGrath, 17-year-old star lacrosse player. The jury also found him not guilty of assault in the first degree in the stabbings of Ryan Hines, Thomas Connery, and Faison Teal. The jury was deadlocked on the lesser charges. Now, this comes after Mr. Valle rejected 2 plea offers of 40 years in prison. He was 16 years old at the time of the stabbings in May of 2022, was facing 60 years in prison if convicted. 3 other teenage boys were also stabbed the night that awful fight broke out at those house parties. So what's next for Valle? So we've got the reckless assault that the jury was deadlocked on. Are these prosecutors going to go and indict him on those charges and try to proceed further? Or are they just going to let this case stay right where the jury left it? Let's bring in our legal analyst guest and talk about that. With me this morning, it's Thursday, so we've got our regular friends, Michael J. Brown and John Phillips, 2 high-profile attorneys to talk about this high-profile case. Good morning, gentlemen. All right, so what is going to happen in criminal court? Is anything more going to happen? I know that I read in some of the local reporting that the attorney representing Jimmy McGrath's family made a comment that surely the prosecution is going to be trying to pursue these lesser charges and indict him again, but I don't want to speak for them. So he doesn't know firmly, and the prosecution did not say a word. They didn't come out and issue any statement. So we're all kind of wondering, what are they going to do? Michael J. Brown, let me go to you on this criminal law question. What do you think we're going to see happen here, and why, please?
Good morning, John. Good morning, Julie. I don't think you're going to see any further prosecution. Here in New York, it's an indictment, and on an indictment, they don't have to re-indict when there's a deadlocked jury. They simply need to go forward on those same charges. Obviously, the top counts where he was acquitted, those are out. There's double jeopardy, so those are finished. On the lower charges, I would find it surprising if the prosecution is going to go forward on those charges. Remember, Julie, when you have a trial, now the defense has seen everything. Everybody was subject to cross-examination. You have a complete transcript. And I don't think it gets better for the prosecution. I actually think it gets worse because now you have a prior testimony. I see John's agreeing with that. We've done this before. We've had prior transcripts, and it's hard to prove it the second go-round if you couldn't do it the first go-round.
Sure. Great point, Michael. We heard Kevin McGrath, who's Jimmy McGrath's father, speak out after the verdict. Let's take a listen together to that moment.
I'm astonished at the result, but you know, it's due process. He's entitled to it, and at the end of the day, the jury made their verdict. I'm not sure, you know, if they're in the same courtroom as we all were together, but that's the verdict, and we'll live with it, and we'll work closely with the prosecution to get resolution. I was ready for maybe manslaughter. I was not ready for not guilty. I'll be honest with you, I don't think anybody was here.
Your heart goes out to that father. I know you both, feel for him. John Phillips, I want to ask you about something that people are already talking about. You do a lot of civil work, and we understand that there may be a big civil fight next as the families of Faison Teal and Jimmy McGrath have filed lawsuits against Raul Valle, against Valle's parents, against Tyler De Silva and De Silva's parents, as well as the family of Jack Snyder. John, your thoughts on whether this battle may move from criminal court to civil court given that verdict?
So generally, and good morning, y'all. Generally, what you see is the civil attorneys are kind of the horse at the gate, right? And the gate's up. It's sometimes stayed, sometimes it's kind of an unofficial stay because you're worried about the Fifth Amendment. But the civil attorneys are ready, champing at the bit to get going. But at the same time, you saw that father. Your viewers saw that father. He's disappointed. And even Raul looked a little surprised by the verdict. And this has been a ongoing multiple year battle. This is a minor. I kind of disagree, and I never get to disagree with Michael, but I have a feeling there might be a refile, if nothing else, just to see if they can renegotiate at a lower level, not 40 years anymore, and they're going to have a lot of pressure in that. I've been in that room where the dad and the mom sit there and say, no, like, get justice for our kid. And it's hard to say no on a case like this, even though it will be very difficult to get a conviction second time around.
Excellent points, John. And to your point, I thought the prosecution's offer of 40 years was crazy. I thought that was really unreasonable. I thought, I'm glad he rejected that. Who would take that at 20 years old for a questionable incident? It's not like this was an obvious premeditated murder. No, there was a legit question of self-defense. And so I often think, did they over-try this, by essentially offering a plea to murder and we'll give you 40? Well, oh, gee, I'm going to jump at that deal. What defendant's going to do that? I wonder, and John, let me go to you on this. What do you think could have resolved this? I wonder if they had come at, Mr. Valle and said, look, if we offer you something like, I believe in Connecticut, they have a reckless manslaughter, something like that, with a term of imprisonment, but a lengthier term of probation and supervised release and pay restitution, to the families and, for all the injuries, all that. I wonder if this could have been solved that way. What do you think, John?
We see that all the time. I mean, most of these cases, I represent the victims. I'm in the room, and I'm preparing the parents for that press conference, and for the dad to outright say, we at least expected manslaughter meant that some victims advocates, some lawyers had gotten to him and said, these really are the challenges. And some families of victims don't want to see the challenges. They're just all about defending their child or their loved one that was murdered or wrongfully killed. And here you have a family that was caught up in this multiple year battle, and a prosecutor that did seem to go too far with the offers. And so that's kind of why I think that there might be, hopefully a voice of reason that says, okay, let's kind of look back at this again. But yeah, I mean, with somebody that was 16 years old at the time too, 40 years is just that's life, essentially.
Right, right, John. Michael J. Brown, a final word to you on this point here. Do you think prosecutors might have made a mistake here in going so hard on this case, on these facts?
Yeah, Julie, you're boxing them in a corner. You're not giving any option for the defense other than to go to trial. And that's not really how our system works, especially on a case of this nature where there's really questionable issues. So, yeah, I think they didn't offer anything reasonable.
Yeah, and I think, maybe that young man looks scared to death to me. I think if there was a reasonable offer, and I think, he had very good counsel, I think they could have walked him through, okay, take responsibility for this. Manslaughter is a lot better than murder, to have a murder conviction at 20. So interesting to look back at now that we've got this verdict. I'm so glad we have you both on the show to talk about more cases. John Phillips, Michael J. Brown, stand by, please. We'll hit a break. Go refill your coffee, my friends at home. When we come back, here's what's coming up.